Welcome back to Book Break. This is our first video of 2021 and it's a good one. This is our December book haul. So if you haven't seen one of these before, every month I get a very exciting email from Elle, the other half of the Book Break team. I never know what it's going to contain, but once I open it, it has information about some of the most exciting books that we have published over the last month. So we are now looking back at December to see what a great publishing month that was. So let's go in. The first book in here is The Hidden Girls by Rebecca Whitney. I have read this one, so it's starting with a fun mystery thriller. Everyone loves an unreliable narrator story, and this is definitely one of those. So our main character is a new mother recovering from postpartum psychosis. So she's really struggling to trust her own judgment. She's worried that even the things she sees and hears might not be real. And then she hears a scream from the local petrol station. So she realizes that she has become the key witness to this terrible crime going on, but nobody trusts her and she's not even sure if she can trust herself. Absolutely terrifying situation to be in. Okay, next we've got The System by Ryan Gattis. Okay, I've been waiting for this one. Also, I hadn't seen that cover before, but I love this. So this is a novel about the American criminal justice system. It tells the story of this crime all the way through from right before the first shots are fired through the justice system, the verdict, the aftermath. And you get this whole chorus of different perspectives telling the story. So we hear from the guilty, the innocent, the victim, the families, the people just doing their jobs. It sounds like a really powerful story, so I can't wait to read this one. Then we have The Other Bennett Sister by Janice Hadlow. So this is the paperback cover. I love that. So I read The Other Bennett Sister back in hardback and I filmed a video with the author Janice Hadlow, which I will link to. It's a really fun one. We were talking about Jane Austen's least popular characters and why that is. One of her least popular characters is Mary Bennet, the middle Bennet sister from Pride and Prejudice, who's basically just treated as a rather annoying joke most of the time. But in The Other Bennet Sister, Janice Hadlow retells that story from Mary's perspective and then even extends the story beyond the events of Pride and Prejudice. And by the end of it, you will have a whole different perspective of Mary Bennet. I haven't yet tried rereading Pride and Prejudice after reading this, but I think it will feel like a very different book. Next is The Manor by Jessie Keane. Okay, I don't know about this one. This was her turf and she would do anything to protect the manor, is what it says on the front. Jessie Keane is a massive bestseller, so I know a lot of you are going to be very excited about this one. I'm just looking at the description now, it sounds great. So it's about these two men who have been blood brothers since the cradle. They grew up together in the East End, they're involved with the local mob, until Charlie, one of them, took over the manor from the local mob and a twist of fate put him and his best mate on the road to the high life. So now they are both married, they have kids, both families have everything they ever wanted until Charlie's adopted son Harlan starts to cause trouble. Then we have another Danielle Steele. This is Moral Compass. We seem to have a Danielle Steele in almost every book haul. She writes books like no one else. So let me just look up what Moral Compass is about. Oh, this one sounds intense. So this is about this rich boys' prep school where kind of the most privileged boys have been going for over 100 years, and now for the first time they are letting girls in. And it's about the aftermath of this massive party on campus. That sounds intense. Danielle Steele knows how to write drama. Okay, next is The Last Diet by Shahrazadi. So this is a reissue of this one. Shahrazadi is the author of The Kindness Method. I did a video with her a few years ago, so I'll link to that below, where we talked about what the kindness method is. And it's basically all about changing habits by being kind to yourself rather than criticizing yourself or saying that you need to be better. And The Last Diet is based on her own experience of losing weight in a way that lasted for her because she was kind to herself along the way. So this one's described as a practical, gentle guide which puts improved mental health at the forefront. So that's really important. And then we have the How Not to Diet cookbook. Okay, so this is by Michael Greger. He is the author of How Not to Die. So he is a physician who wrote How Not to Die based on scientific facts about food and how food can impact our health and allow us to live hopefully long, healthy lives. This was then followed up by How Not to Diet, which was a similar approach to dieting. And this is the How Not to Diet cookbook, where he is actually giving his examples of recipes. So there's no calorie counting in here, no juice cleansers, just genuine nutritious recipes that are good for our bodies. Next, we've got Confessions of a 40-something Fuck-Up by Alexandra Potter. So you may have seen me talking about this one recently in our video on books about being a hot mess. This is about a woman who is in her 40s when a lot of her life seems to fall apart at once. She loses her fiance and her job, and she has to move back to London from the US and finds herself renting a room in someone else's flat because that's all she can afford in London. So it feels like she's suddenly at a very different stage of life to the rest of her friends, something that a lot of people at any age will find very relatable. But she ends up striking up this very sweet, unlikely friendship with a woman in her 80s who also feels in her own way like her life is a bit of a mess too. That feels like a great one to read at the beginning of the year when everyone's kind of making New Year's resolutions and you feel a bit like you're not sure what your resolutions are because you're not sure what you're doing. Next, we've got Pinch of Nom Quick and Easy. So Pinch of Nom was an absolute sensation. It was a complete phenomenon. Again, I will link to a video where I tried out one of their recipes from the first book. This is Pinch of Nom Quick and Easy. So it's really simple recipes, minimum fuss, maximum flavour is how they describe it. And I'm just looking now at some of the recipes included in here. Veggie satay noodles, creamy Cajun chicken pasta, and apple and apricot OT crumble. Yum, I definitely want that one. Okay, next we have Eat to Save the Planet by Annie Bell. So again, you may have heard me talking about this one recently in our video on New Year's resolutions for the greater good. So this is another recipe book. We're all going to be very well fed this month, but this one is based on the Planetary Health Guide. So all the recipes in here are designed around being good for the environment. So there's lots of veggie and vegan plant-based recipes in here, which are obviously great for the environment, but if you're not vegetarian, don't worry, there are also recipes in here with fish in, with meat in, even with red meat in, all done in an eco-friendly way. Then we have, oh, this is exciting, All We Are Saying, the last major interview with John Lennon and Yoko Ono. So this is the 40th anniversary edition. This interview was first published in Playboy in 1981, right after John Lennon was shot, and this now has a new introduction reflecting on the 40 years since John Lennon's death. The interview itself is absolutely amazing. This was this huge knockout interview, there's so much in there. So now I'm really excited to see it all together with this new context. And then finally, I've got one more book in here, which is Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. Okay, this is the new Netflix cover. Firefly Lane starts in the 70s and goes across 30 years of these two women's friendship, all of the hurdles that they go through together, this one major act of betrayal and whether or not their friendship can recover from that. And I love this new cover. So this is now being made into a Netflix show, and this cover really sums up their friendship through the ages. I think that's gorgeous and so much fun. So do leave a comment below letting us know which of those you are most excited about, or any other books that you hauled in December that you want to tell us about, and I will link here to a playlist of all of our other book break haul videos so you can go back and look through for more shopping inspiration. See you next time.